We have another terrific guest coming on the show today. She goes by the name of Theresa Hassler. Theresa Hassler is a licensed attorney in New York State. I want to get her on the show because she has a lot of interesting things to talk about, and a lot of things been going on in the community and society and stuff like that. So I want to get a lawyer's point of view and a lawyer's input on things that's going on from the legal standpoint. So I thank y'all for tuning in tonight, and it should be a great show. I just want to let y'all know about something real quick. They're trying to work on them stimulus checks again. Yeah, I guess, we gotta look for it again, try to make it happen. You know, it's free money, but at the same time, it's taxpayers' money. So the way they making it sound like they're gonna have it coming on a consistent basis. So, you know, y'all be on the lookout for the stimulus checks. And also people that's on unemployment, at the end of this month, the unemployment runs out. So you gotta reapply for unemployment because they extended the unemployment also. So I just want you to know, some stuff, you know, is not public information. You know, if you don't hear about it, you might not know about it. And we all need that right now. I don't care if you got $1 million, I don't care what you got. It's free money, get that money. You know, if you can get it, you get it. Some people don't get it, but it doesn't hurt to apply for it. But once again, we got Theresa Hassler coming on. And she was on Maria Davis live last week. And she just kept saying some very important stuff and things that I thought were relevant for people to listen to in society. So I said, you know what, let me call this young lady and get her on the show. So she agreed, and we're going to have her on the show. And it should be a good one. Like I said, she's a New York licensed attorney, and she's very smart, and she is something that we need on the show, you know, some information, because information is very important. Lack of information is what you know, stirs people to do the wrong thing and think the wrong thing. So we want her to come on the show. I'm going to ask all type of different questions, and maybe it might be helpful to some of us, you know. So just pay attention and enjoy the show. But hope y'all doing all right out there with this. You know, we still got the COVID going on. It's a lot of, you know, not wearing masks and group gatherings and stuff like that. Don't get it twisted. You know, stay on point. I know you can't breathe in it, but like me, you know, put it on your chin sometime when you're not around nobody. And when you get around people, put it on, you know, over your face so, you know, you can stay safe. Because it's definitely still out there. And I know you don't want to be a victim or get caught out there, you know. We got a lot of people tuning in early, so that's a good thing. It's a very good thing. So Theresa Hassler should be pulling up momentarily, and I can't wait to get on because this lady definitely got a lot to say. Very smart, intelligent, black woman, and you know, she's a lawyer, so she should be able to answer some questions. If y'all have any questions y'all want to ask her, just type it in on the live, and we'll go over it and stuff like that. So I see J Squared, Sarita, how y'all doing? The Harlem Plug, how y'all doing? Thanks for tuning in once again. And like I said, it should be a good show. You know, hopefully she come on in a minute. A lot of people be having complications with getting on this live. So, you know, see if she can get on here on time. It's almost that time to come on. But also for us men, you know, they're trying to bring the NBA back, so I don't know how that's going to work either, you know, because fouling people and playing defense and all that type of stuff. I mean, ain't going to have no fans in the stand, but, you know, it's still going to be some lack of social distancing, so it's going to be interesting to see how they pull that off. The baseball, they kind of spread out a little bit, so you ain't got to worry about that much. But that football is grabbing and pushing and shoving. And that basketball gets physical with the elbows and the blocking shots and all that type of stuff. So it's going to be some contact. So, you know, hopefully, you know, nobody gets sick, and, you know, and we be able to get back to the game normally, and then we'll be able to invite the fans back, because without the game, without the fans, I think the game going to be kind of boring, you know? It's going to be like a scrimmage and stuff like that. So Theresa Hassler, where you at? It's showtime. We looking for you. We got people tuning in right now. Hopefully you hear me. All you gotta do is hit my logo on my link, and you should come on with no problem. See, another thing that's going on too is the school system. So they don't know if they can open a school system for the kids and stuff like that. I think they should close it, if you ask me. But kids are a mess. Kids are dirty. You know, kids don't know how to social distance. They don't know how to do none of that. Okay, there Theresa Hass is right there. So they're not going to wear their masks. They're not going to wear their gloves. So keep your kid home and ask the school teacher for some online classes for your kid. But Theresa Hass is coming on right now. So let's talk and let's enjoy the show. Theresa, what's up? How you feeling?
Good. How are you?
What's up, man?
Nothing much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. God is good, you
Good.
know?
God is amazing.
God is amazing. You look nice.
Thank you.
You look nice.
How is
Huh?
I said I woke up like this.
Okay. That's what I like to hear.
Right, right, right,
All right, so
right.
tell me, we got a lot of people on that's checking you out right now. So
Uh-oh.
come on
Sorry
back.
about that.
Okay, take it easy. It's showtime. Tell
Right,
everybody where
yeah.
you from.
I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Born and raised in the Lou. And I've been up in New York living, working since January 2011. So what's that, like nine plus years?
Mm. So how's life in St. Louis, Missouri?
Crazy.
What you mean?
Um, Crazy because St. Louis, of course, is in the Midwest, and it borders the Mississippi. On one side is Missouri, and the other side is Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Louis, because of its history and its founding, is really extremely racist. It was a slave state and a free state. So I always say that it's racially schizophrenic.
Wow.
uh, it is constantly dealing with this duality of a history, over 100-year history of being both a slave and a free state. And so it's a very unique place in America, just as far as its racism is concerned. And so that continues to play out.
Wow. So how did you deal with that growing up as a young girl?
You know, growing up, uh, it was St. Louis is still, I guess, to this day, well, of course, to this day, very racially divided. But if you've grown up there for any period of time, the division is very palpable, right? So there actually been books that have been written about this by national authors. There's a street in St. Louis called Delmar, and there's something known as the Delmar Divide, where literally north of Delmar was all black, and south of Delmar was, and is still now, predominantly white. And
Mm-hmm.
so, can you imagine sort of crossing? Um, I'm trying to think of a street, maybe here in Harlem. You're on 116 and uh, Lenox, and you literally cross from one side of 116 to the other, and it's like you're in a totally different world. And so, for me, growing up north of Delmar, growing up in a predominantly black community, historically black neighborhood, I had a wonderful upbringing, but it was definitely very obvious, even to this day, that there's a racial divide. Even now with St. Louis, one of the questions that people ask is, if you're from St. Louis, they ask what high school you went to, because it is a quick way to sort of put you in a box.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to school on the south side, you're a certain type of person. If you went to school on the north side, you're a certain type of person. And so even today, that culture persists. It's very divisive. Very
Mm.
divisive. So New York is different in that sense, that you have different races and classes sort of living amongst each other. Part of that is due to gentrification, of course. But in St. Louis, that divide, it's very much like this. I mean, it's very narrow.
Is there a lot of violence down there?
There's extreme violence there. Growing up there, there's always violence growing up, but especially since I've been away, and even now, it is off the charts. And so I know there's some people here who are, I see my friend Shanitha Layden, who's a wonderful person who I've known for a long time. She's on here, can speak to what's going on in St. Louis right now, but it is off the chain, off the chain. No rhyme, no reason, just people, whether it's drive-bys, whether it's, teenagers on the corner, literally with AR-15s, just out on the corner, on the street, brandishing their assault rifle, shooting randomly at people. It's out of control.
Is it a white on black thing or is it a black on black thing?
I think that it is, thinking about the community where I live and where the violence is, it's definitely the violence is being reported, the gun violence in predominantly black areas. But, when I think about that question, is it black on black versus white on black or white on white crime? I think about our society in general and how the way we have, for centuries in this country, have created a system of discrimination based on poverty, the education systems, defunding public schools, putting money into charter schools, and people can feel however they feel about charter schools. But the truth is, when you take money from the public education system, when you de-incentivize home ownership in black communities, if you go back to maybe the 60s, 50s, you look at a show like Good Times, which of course is in the 70s, but if you had a family on welfare, which they don't call it welfare anymore necessarily, it was prohibited for the man to be in the household, right? So what does that do to the family dynamic? In a lot of households, you're discouraging a family unit, saying that you either get the money or you have a family. And so you look at that persistent level of systemic racism and how that plays out in violence. So, I don't want to just answer the question, is the violence black on black? Predominantly, yes, but you have to look at the system that created that.
Right. So have you ever been in any legal trouble?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about it.
I ain't shot nobody. But there was this. It's an interesting story. So wow, this is before I even went to law school. I was in my 20s, maybe, I don't know, mid to late 20s. I was driving around St. Louis, and I was going through a lot of stuff anyway, but that's irrelevant. And I'm driving around, and the cops there are like cops most places are out of control. And there was a barricade for construction or something, and I didn't see it. It was pitch black. It was nighttime, and I kind of drove around it. I had this truck, and the police officer stopped me and, gave me a ticket. He and I went back and forth, a lot of rah-rah. I probably got the ticket because I was running my mouth, I'm sure, but gave me a ticket. Now, in the St. Louis courts, I had a court date, and I missed the first one. I can't remember why I missed the first one. Okay, so then there's a second court date. Go to the court, and it's hot. St. Louis, you talk about hot now in New York. St. Louis is it's beasting. I mean, it is extreme hot and extreme cold. So I go to the court, and I'm wearing a skirt that goes past my knees. I'm wearing a shirt maybe like this, just a little V-neck T-shirt. I look appropriate, right? I'm going to court. It's summertime. I'm defending a ticket. And I walk in, and I think the skirt was long, but maybe the shirt maybe it was sleeveless, but it wasn't like tight. It wasn't a tank top. It wasn't super low. And the security stopped me and said, "You can't come in here because your arms are not covered." And I never heard anything like that in my life. So I was prohibited from going into court and defending my ticket because my arms were exposed.
Right.
Needless to say, and I wasn't paying attention. A bench warrant was issued for my arrest because the court didn't know that I didn't show up. They didn't know why I didn't show up. So I'm driving around a couple of months later, coming from the gym, get pulled over in a whole other jurisdiction. They said there's a warrant out for your arrest. I get thrown in jail for, it seemed like eternity, but it was really only a few hours. Put me in an orange jumpsuit and everything. Maybe take off my clothes, orange jumpsuit. Like I'm sharing a cell, and somebody like 3 cells down was singing Akon. I'm locked up. Like, it was crazy. And so that was probably like my only involvement with criminal justice, but it's only by the grace of God that that's the only experience I have. because this mouth can get me in trouble. But it really was it shed a light on something. How when I looked at how many of us were locked up for small things, there were people that were there who were on their way to work and they got pulled over. When you look at the Ferguson report and Mike Brown and people really paying attention to Ferguson, that's St. Louis, right?
Right.
There are about 88 municipalities, and most of them have their own police departments. Can you imagine if Harlem had its own police department, the Upper West Side had its own police department, Columbus Circle had its own police department, and you driving down from Harlem going south, and every place you got a ticket from a different jurisdiction, and you have to answer for each one of those tickets. It's like that in St. Louis, and they all have their different rules, and so there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done as far as dismantling the racism of St. Louis's and St. Louis County's criminalization of Black people for very small things.
Is there a lot of gang activity down there?
There's a lot of gang activity. That's, like I said, going back to the violence but now, it's gang activity, but I feel like now, and anybody who's joined in who is, I haven't looked at the comments, who's there now, I think a lot of it is just an explosion of violence. Some of it is gang related, but there's something about gang related violence that, at least for the people who are doing it, it seems logical. Right. Maybe it's retribution, maybe sending a message. But what's happening now in St. Louis in the past few years, these past 4 years, has just been irrational, even at that level. It's just violence for the sake of violence. There's no specific target, right? You could be driving down your street and get carjacked, right? There was a late last year, I think, there was a family of 4, a man, a woman, maybe 5, and 3 kids in the back. Broad daylight. It was a Saturday afternoon. I don't know where they were going. And somebody, as they're crossing through the intersection, somebody just shot through their car. One of the kids in the back was killed, right? The other kids were injured, right? So it was, that's what's going on right now.
Let me ask you a question. So you said one side is the Blacks and one side is the whites, pretty much if you go across a street or something. So my thing is, if you cross that street, is there a problem?
No. It's not, it's not a problem. It just feels weird. Like I said, it's palpable. It's, it's still, we're still in the 21st century. It feels like the 20th century, 21st century. So you're not going to get arrested, right? It's not like, somebody's going to stop you or something like that. But it's literally going from, you cross the street and it looks different. It feels different. The houses are different. The street is different. Imagine if you went, and this is just a very small example. So again, that example about crossing 116th at Lenox, and you literally cross from one side of 116th to the other, just in that little corner. And north of 116th, or I guess east of 116th, the streets are gravelly and unpaved, right? The sidewalk is falling apart. The houses are, you have blighted property and vacant land and trash and stores that are shut down and whatever. And then you literally, you can actually see it. You cross the street. The streets are paved. Houses are painted. The grocery store doesn't have, out-of-date food. The air smells cleaner. It's literally, I'm not exaggerating. It is literally that stark of a difference. So it just feels weird. It makes you feel, without saying, you don't belong here.
But do any of the Black people that got money live like we do, like gentrified with the white people type of situation?
Yeah, it's happened, but in St. Louis, it doesn't happen the way it's happened here, right? So unlike New York or even other places where you see when people can afford to go to certain places, or white people want to move to Manhattan and they live in Harlem, you don't see that in St. Louis. St. Louis, because of its historical racism, you're still not going to see, even though you have all this cheap vacant land in North St. Louis, you're not going to see an influx of white people going in to swoop up vacant property the way they do here. Or if they swoop it up, which some of them are swooping it up, it's to sell it to somebody else. It's not for them to live in. They still are living in their predominantly. And so then maybe in the 60s and 70s, when you had urban renewal, you did have, of course, in the midst of desegregation. So, you think about the Black family structure, right? Even I think about my mother, who's born and raised in St. Louis, who still lives there now. and you have a big family, and they all
Mm.
live in the same house. Grandma, aunt, uncle, cousins, whoever, right? They live in the same house, maybe different professions, different echelons. And what happens, and this is just for some Black communities, as soon as desegregation happened and we were allowed to live in certain neighborhoods, right, uh, without those covenants and easements, what happens is the people in that house who can afford to left. What
Mm.
happens to everybody else in that house, right? Maybe they move to the projects because they just built a new project high rise, public housing, right, or something like that. So you do have Black people who, when they were able to, purchased and bought homes, south of Delmar because it was prestigious, right? We want to
Mm-hmm.
go where we couldn't go before, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
status symbol, right? We want to do those things we couldn't do. Which is fine. It's your right to do that. But what are you doing to the brothers and sisters and family members that are still, in this other area who can't get out, who
Right.
can't afford to? So that creates a class divide as well. But in
Mm.
St. Louis, the race still trumps the class. So it doesn't matter if you a Black person with a mansion in Forest Park. It don't matter. You still Black, and they don't care.
They don't care. So guns are easy to buy down there, I presume.
Why you asking me, Don Vito? I'm trying to figure out this line of questioning. I ain't
Cause,
never bought a
cause,
gun
cause
in
I'm
St.
trying to
Louis.
learn about St. Louis because I know
I
a few people come from down there, and I didn't
Yeah.
know it was still like that. Is what I'm saying.
It's I don't know when the last time you were there or your friends, but it's
Yeah.
worse
Right.
because it's not in our generations, it was, again, violence is violence, but
Right.
there was something to it, right? um and there were maybe some rules, even though it
Okay.
seemed, it didn't make sense to everybody else. Not to say that random things didn't happen. You had somebody popping off, but there was something you knew. Don't go here, don't go there, don't wear this color, don't wear that color, don't say this, don't say that, don't throw up this. Right? There was something even in that. Now it is buck wild.
Mm.
It is buck wild, right?
Mm.
So whatever in your mind, the way it used to be, it's still like that, right?
Right.
But for people younger than you and younger than me, there's not even that.
Right.
It's just manic.
So you're a licensed attorney.
Yes, I'm licensed here in New York. I'm not licensed in Missouri.
Okay. So what made you say I want to be a lawyer?
Oh, oh, well, it took me a while. When I was a little girl, it just sounded good, right? I think I would say I wanted to be a lawyer and a judge. I wanted to be like Thurgood Marshall. And you start saying those things as a child, and adults remember that. But then as I got older, got into high school, I realized I had the opportunity to do an internship when I was in high school at a St. Louis law firm, and I hated it. It was the most boring thing ever. I was like, this sucks. I don't want to be a lawyer. And by the time I left high school and went to college, my bachelor's degree is in art and design because I was going
Mm-hmm.
to be an artist. And so actually my bachelor's is not in political science or history or anything like that. It's in art. And oddly enough, I graduated and I was accepted to graduate school in Chicago for arts management, where you learn how to curate and manage museums and theaters and things like that. So I was excited. And I got a phone call from, it's a long story, I'm short. I got a phone call saying that there's a campaign going on in St. Louis. And I did not want to go back to St. Louis. I was dead set on not going back to St. Louis. They said there's a campaign going on in Missouri. If you move back to St. Louis, and work on this campaign through the November election, you can put off school for a semester, but we really want you to help with this. So I knew nothing about politics. I didn't know the difference between a state rep and a state senate. I didn't know anything. So I started working on this campaign right after college, and it changed my life. I never went back. I never went to art school in Chicago. I never did any of that. The bug bit me. And so I began this career, this 20-year journey into politics and government affairs. And through that process, I was working with elected officials and lobbyists, and they would say to me, even though I wasn't thinking about being a lawyer anymore, they would say to me, you should really go to law school. You'd make a great lawyer.
Mm.
So it took me some time, but in 2007, I went to law school full-time in Des Moines, Iowa, Drake University. graduated 2010, and moved here January 2011.
So how did you get into politics?
So again, it was that, you know, I'm going in one direction, and I get this call. When I was in college, you know, every summer I found myself coming back to. So I went to college in this very small town south of St. Louis, this town called Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Way in the southern part of Missouri. It's almost like going to school in Mississippi, because it's a very different feeling down there. And every summer I'd have to go back to St. Louis to, you know, take a little minimum wage job and just pass the time. And I was determined, you know, honestly, I wanted to come to New York. I was going to be an artist. And so I wanted to get out of St. Louis at least for one summer during college. And the president of my university, who I had a relationship with, said, I don't know anybody in New York, but I know somebody in DC. Would you mind going to DC for the summer? And I said, you know, it doesn't matter as long as it's not St. Louis. Well, needless to say, I didn't end up in DC either. I ended up back in Missouri, not in St. Louis, but in Missouri State Capital, which is Jefferson City, Missouri, which is, people think Albany is boring. Albany is Las Vegas compared to Jefferson City, Missouri.
It
Right?
sound
Like
boring.
right. Thank you. So I ended up in Jefferson, Missouri. I was only there for like 3 weeks. It was the shortest internship ever. 3 weeks. I worked for the then governor. His name was Bob Holden. And I don't even know what I did. I did something that seemed insignificant, like stapling papers or whatever. But based off of that 3 week experience in Jefferson City, that's when the following year I got that call saying, come work on this campaign. We heard you did really good work in the governor's office, which I'm thinking I was 3 weeks. I was, you know, stapling papers. That's when they said, come work on this campaign. And so the campaign that I worked on when I graduated from college in 2002, from June 2002 up until November 2002, was what really kickstarted my political government career.
Okay, so what did you do in politics once you got, you know, past a certain point?
You know, so like I said, it started off on a campaign. It was a U.S. senator named Jean Carnahan, who was a U.S. senator. She was running for re-election in 2002, and that's a whole other historical, you know, moment. And worked as a statewide outreach coordinator. And then at some point, I just sort of became her special assistant. But really learning, one of the things that really stuck out to me, and this is why I get passionate about talking to people like Maria Davis and other people about politics and transparency, is because I realized that when it comes to the Black vote, and this is everywhere, that there are different rules of engagement. So, this is, you know, nothing specific to that campaign. This is a nationwide strategy. So I want to be very specific because I have friends who may be joining who I worked on the campaign. So nothing against her personally, but there's a structure within, and I'll just say Democratic politics, that they wait until it's almost time to vote before they try to get Black people to vote, right? They wait until maybe a month or so out. You see all the electeds going to the churches, right? You see all of the signs. You need to rise to polls. We'll take you to polls. All of this stuff. Meanwhile, in white communities, this is what I saw. They court the vote different. They actually court the vote, right? So if you're talking to a group of you know, soccer moms, you know, they message to that. If you're talking to a group of you know, labor leaders, they message to that. If you're talking to a group of small business people, or they message to that, right? They actually listened and crafted policy. But when it came to the Black vote, it was just, we know you're gonna vote Democrat, so just how you need to ride. Right, like right. It was like we already know how we don't even. It was almost like they didn't even put in the same level of effort. Now I'm not saying effort wasn't put in, but it looked different.
Right.
It wasn't policy effort. It was sort of, what can we do to make this more enticing? Because we know you're gonna do it. You know, what can we do?
Right.
Right. You need money. You need this. What is it you want me to do? You want me to hire your cousin? What is it? You want it, right? And we do it. Right. Sometimes we have leaders in our communities, right, who we entrust, who we shouldn't always necessarily, because our vote is our vote, who we entrust to lead us in the right direction. And sometimes, not all of them, sometimes they're brokering deals that benefit them, right? And they'll say, I can get you 500 people from my building. right? They
Mm-hmm.
get the benefit, and all they do is deliver the vote, right? So we
Right.
have also people in our community that put themselves in the position to actually, be the deal maker, and that's not fair to us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that lack of transparency on the process really got me really excited about continuing in politics and government affairs. So a lot of campaigns. I did some campaigns, running some campaigns, working on a couple of campaigns, and then I moved back to Jefferson City, and I worked for the then Lieutenant Governor Joe Maxwell, who's a wonderful person. Worked, and that was sort of my first entree into government. So first I did a campaign, then I did government,
Mm-hmm.
and really enjoyed that interaction as far as lobbying and policy making, economic development, and that. And so it's really just sort of been a series of back and forth. Eventually, I left campaigning
Uh-huh.
because even though, depending on where you are, what office is up for election, there can be a lot of money in campaigns, right? There can be a lot of money in working for a particular campaign. But I cannot work for somebody who I don't think is the best person for the job.
Right.
Right? Like I don't do that. There's plenty of people that have joined a campaign. They know that the person's a long shot. They know they're not really going to be a good elected, but they want the money. I cannot, first of all, talk to my people about the reason why you should vote for somebody if I don't believe in that person myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to sort of distance myself from campaign work for a
Right.
while and have really just focused on government.
So what's your input on Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter as a movement, as a
As movement,
hashtag.
as a community, as to the younger generation, as to the police brutality, all of that.
I I based on my experience being a black person, and I say black person in New York, you have a lot of um, people who are not born and raised in America, maybe they second, third generation. You see a lot of that in New York. Where I'm
Mm-hmm.
from, in from St. Louis and other places in the Midwest, you don't have that. It's sort of what you have, what I call 16, 19 black people, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, where your grandmother from? I don't know, Mississippi. Where was her grandmother from? I don't know. She's probably a slave, right? For me to go to, no bar. And so for me, America, having this American black experience, Black Lives Matter is very important. It was I think born out of or gained prominence after Mike Brown and Ferguson, which of course I'm from that area. So I think that it's a amazing movement. I do think though a couple of things, because Black lives do matter, and it's time that people recognize that. Um, but I think that what happens is a lot of times with our movements is they become too easily co-opted, right? They become too easily co-opted, so much so that they're so mainstream at times, or they can become so mainstream that the message gets watered down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about the word privilege. Privilege 10 years ago, white people, that was uncomfortable, right? For a white person to admit they were privileged, or to even use the word privilege. We never used it so much in our lives as we have in the past 5 years. Nobody was saying privilege the way we are now, right?
Right.
And then you started saying it, and white people started feeling uncomfortable and thinking, I'm not privileged, and they started unpacking. But then, before you know it, it started gaining so much popularity that people say it without even thinking about it.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so it's become so watered down and diluted in such a short period of time that people have not even had a chance to process what does that really mean. And
Mm-hmm.
so for Black Lives Matter, which is now it's a website, it's a hashtag, it's a nonprofit, it's an organization, it's a 501c3, it has all these sponsors, it's getting awards. It's what I see is not necessarily the crux of stop killing us so much as, like other movements before, it is vulnerable to or has already been co-opted
Mm.
in that way that people don't think about it, right? You have white people that they have no problem saying Black Lives Matter,
Mm.
right? They have no problem doing a hashtag. They don't have no problem putting a black box on their Instagram, and that's okay. And I'm not saying that all of them don't get it, but I think that it's not hard anymore right? People
Right.
don't feel like they have to do the work. The work just says Black Lives Matter.
Right.
I've done the work.
Right.
Right. So that's how I feel about sometimes our movements and this particular movement. And maybe it's just social media and the period of time we are in history, but I think it's too easy to get away from the meaning and actually going through that uncomfortable space.
Wow. You're
You know what I'm
correct.
saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, for instance, when, they have the Black Lives Matter, in a few places in the city, in the streets, and then you get a African American lady who throws paint on the Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
She
how
was
you,
probably paid to do that, though. I mean, sometimes you got. So there's a couple of. I mean, so what happened in that moment? So you look at this lady throwing paint, and what happens? You see the police. Now I've been down to Fifth Avenue a few times. I get my nails done over in that area. I walk down there. And this is ever since Trump became president. You can't really maneuver around Trump Tower, right?
right,
For security purposes. Ever since he became president, you got barricades, you got 24-hour police because he might be there, his wife might. You don't know what's going on, so you can't even navigate Fifth Avenue the way you used to.
right,
After they painted the mural, I was there maybe about 2-3 weeks ago. I can't remember something else. And I walked over and I saw it was painted, and there had just been, by the time I got over Sunday afternoon, there had been a pro-Trump rally, which was, it looked like predominantly Black and brown people. They were in their pro-Trump gear, and it was, I missed it. It looked like a circus. So I was glad I missed it. But you couldn't, but even the rally, whatever it is they had, they couldn't traverse Fifth Avenue, right? They had to walk on the sidewalk, or they had to be on these sides of the barricades. So I'm trying to think in my mind, when I see this Black woman, she was Black, which is, of course, people have to get, that's shocking in and of itself for some people. But how did she, when you look, how long was she there before the police actually stopped her?
right,
Right? You let her get past you onto Fifth Avenue in front of Trump Tower, which I don't know who can get really in that part of Fifth Avenue, in that block. You let her get past the barricade, put paint down, roll herself in it, smear it on the ground, and then you're like, okay, that's enough. Right? Like, they waited until she did the whole,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you
yeah,
can't even get past, it's police everywhere over there, right?
right,
So to me, it's you have to look at the whole picture, right? Like, they not just gonna let some Black woman go down in front of Trump Tower unless
right,
she's pushing their agenda.
right,
Right, like unless there's something coordinated about that. Even that sad little rally that they had with all these Black and brown people, and they look like they was shipped in on a bus from somewhere. They looked like they was all over the place. Everybody who walked past, like, it was clear that they were paid. It was the saddest, sorriest group of people you ever saw, right? And you thinking, how you got these Black and brown people wrapped in the American flag and pro-Trump and anti-Black Lives Matter. And I'm not saying that people aren't entitled to their opinion. I'm not saying that every Black person isn't anti-Trump. There are some people that actually are pro-Trump, and that's their right. But you have to look at that woman and how did she get there, right? Was it coordinated, right? Why was she Black? Did they plan that? Was she paid?
right,
Right? And people get paid all the time. I used to work in politics. They pay people to go to the polls. They pay people to work at them. They pay us. I remember in St. Louis, there was a couple of campaigns where, you get money, and I'm not disparaging St. Louis. If anybody of my St. Louis political friends on here, we did it. But you get a couple of dollars, but then they would church's chicken. And you get 2 pieces and a biscuit, right? You go show up and do this phone bank, we give you chicken dinner. People have been paying in politics forever.
right,
Right? They pay down in southern states, in southeast Missouri, where I said I went to school, and other places. You have people who are dirt poor. There were people when I was in college there in the late 90s, early 2000s, living in corrugated metal shacks that still had outdoor plumbing. This is the 90s and 2000s. You have people in southern parts of Missouri who were living like people on a farm 50 years ago. And so how do you get them engaged? You get people what they need. Right? So you would get them a box fan for their window. You would get them an air conditioner. You would get them a bag of groceries. And that's okay, because that's what they need.
right.
Right? And so that's also part of the sometimes the political landscape. So I wouldn't be surprised if that lady was paid, or if they knew she was doing that and allowed her to do it.
Yeah, because I didn't understand how she was able to do that either. It just seemed like she had too much time.
Right. I mean, the police have been there since he became president. And then when the Black Lives Matter, of course, they really on high alert, and he don't want it there in front of the building. It's gonna make Fifth Avenue lose its value, which is not making Fifth Avenue lose its value because the commercial leases are so high that half the luxury stores on Fifth Avenue have shut at their doors anyway. But you let her pass the barricade. You got 25 gazillion police there, 24 hours a day anyway, and you let her get past you, pour blue paint, and roll around on the floor.
Yeah, it's a
To
lot.
roll around on the ground, and then you're like, okay, that's enough. After it was too late, right? It's crazy.
So she got arrested, right?
I have no idea. I don't know what happened to her. She may have gotten arrested. She may have.
They had to probably arrest her and then let out, out the back door later on that night, something like that,
Who knows?
Job well done.
Who knows?
You know what
All
I
right,
mean?
now, Vito, listen, you said it, not me.
So how you like living in you live in Harlem, right?
I live in Harlem now. I lived in Brooklyn for a brief period of time, but I'm back in Harlem. I enjoy it. You got to love New York to live here and deal with the fact that nobody pays this type of rent for what you get. You don't get nothing for what you get in New York compared to what you get anywhere else. You got to love it because you don't get nothing here for what we pay to live here. Pay to get around, pay for the bus, pay for the train, pay for a rent. Nobody in the rest of America, maybe San Francisco, do you see people who have the option, and I know I have the option to be here. Everybody doesn't have the option. People are born and raised. There's not really places they can go. And so that's a whole other situation. But for people like me who decided to move here, it's because I love it.
Right. So
despite the difficulty.
So what have you done anything in New York as far as like with politics or government or, with your specialty as an attorney?
Yeah, so when I moved here in 2011, I didn't just move here on a humbug. I knew that ever since college, like I said, ever since I knew I wanted to be an artist, even though I thought I'd be here living this, Basquiat artist sort of fantasy, I ended up living here. I knew I always wanted to live here, but it wasn't in art. It was in government affairs. So I actually got a job. It was Christmas 2010. I was still in St. Louis. And December 2010, I did a Skype interview. I've been applying to jobs in New York online, and this guy who ran this organization offered to do a Skype interview. So I'm literally sitting in my parents' house doing this interview over Skype with this man in New York, and he offers me a job. And 2 weeks later, I was here, and I haven't looked back. And so that organization it's now called Hunger Free America, but at the time it was called the New York City Coalition Against Hunger. And the job that I had was Director of Government. It was a long title. I'm going to shorten it. Director of Government Relations and Communications. Okay. And so I was there for 2 years. Wonderful experiences. And that really helped to expand my knowledge of policy and open me up to how the New York political landscape. Because even though it was the New York City Coalition Against Hunger, we did not run food pantries or food banks. We weren't like the Food Bank of New York or City Harvest or some of these other places. We were a think tank. So we really dealt with the policies, not just around hunger, not just around food stamps, not just around WIC, not just around those things, but we dealt with poverty, right? Because the thing is, if you're hungry, that's not your only problem, right? Hunger doesn't happen in a vacuum. Right. If you have a true hunger problem, then I'm going to also look at what's your work situation, right? You got a work situation. What's your education situation? You got to educate. What's your housing situation?
Yes.
Right. What's your so it's really looking at all of the systems and how they interplay, right? Because hunger is only one thing, but if you have a true hunger problem, if you're food insecure, then you got a whole lot of other stuff going on too.
Yeah, you do. And I said the same thing about like 125th Street. I'm just gonna say that area. There's more areas. 125th Street, Lenox, 116th Street, Lenox. There's a lot of people that's messed up on. I believe it's dope.
Yeah, okay, definitely.
And like you just mentioned, it just can't be the drugs. It has to be, like you said, their housing, their family, their up. A lot of stuff that made these people, who they are right now.
Yeah. Education, work, you come out of jail, ain't no job for you. Why is there no job, right? Or I try to get a job, I don't have anything to wear to the job. I don't have money to even get to the job, right? So then you got people hopping the turnstiles, not because they are truants or they doing it just to do it, but they got to get places, right? Because if they're not there at a certain time, they lose their job, right? If I show up at my job at 9:05, I'm supposed to be there at 8:30. It's not a good look, but I'm
Right.
not going to get fired, right? They're not going to bring in somebody else. But a lot of us have those sorts of situations, and so it's systemic, right? Poverty is systemic,
Mm.
just like racism is systemic. The systems are put in place to keep people in these stations in life, right? What was it? What before the housing bubble, 2003, 2004, buy a house, right? Low interest rate loans. Everybody's buying a property, buying a house. What happens 5 years later? The market crashes. You got all these foreclosures. You have all of these things because the systems were not in place for us, at least, to sustain that. And
Right.
so when you have people who get in trouble with criminally involved, maybe they go to jail, maybe they don't go to jail, maybe like in St. Louis, I'm giving this example of just getting a ticket. Right now, I wasn't going anywhere that day. I was coming from the gym, got caught up, right?
Right.
Didn't know I had a warrant, but I was surrounded by my brothers and sisters who were here who got caught up on something, the same thing, and they may not even been a warrant. They may have just gotten a ticket, but there was another ticket they didn't know about. And now, like I said, all of these different municipalities, once they left at that point, I think that was the Florissant or Jennings courthouse. There was I barely missed it because my case was in St. Louis City. But at the time I was living in St. Louis County, I got caught in the St. Louis County jail system. But if I was there an hour longer before I got somebody posted my bond, if I was there an hour longer, what happened was there was I don't know if it was a van or a bus. It literally goes from courthouse to courthouse to courthouse to courthouse, picking up people and making them serve time in each one of the courts. So imagine, like I said, that example. You got a Harlem court police department, you got Upper West Side, you got Columbus Circle, you got Union Square. You just going down Broadway, north to south. You get a ticket in every jurisdiction.
Mm.
So you get caught up. Let's say you get caught up in Queens. All right, you speeding in Queens. So you do your time in Queens. They're like, oh, but you got a ticket in Harlem. So then they transport you to Harlem. You do another 2 days. Then they transport you to the Upper West Side. What happens now? I'm in 10 years. I'm caught up in this system. That's what happened. That's part of the problem that happens in St. Louis. That's an extreme example. So they you 10 days between the court fines and the cost. 10 days you're not showing up to work. You lost your job. By the time you get back, they done repossess your car. You can't afford to get it out at the impound. And so, that's sort of a St. Louis example, which is extreme, which is an actual example. But even like here, there's systems in place to purposely keep you from getting ahead, right? They don't want you to come out of jail and succeed necessarily, right? They don't want you to come out with a college degree, because I graduated college. That's what we're supposed to do. But now I'm saddled with debt, right? And then they want you to continue to be saddled with debt, right? They want you to buy a house, but they want you to pay 30% interest, right, on a 30-year mortgage, right? So that's what you have to look at, is the policies and the systems that sort of keep people in the place that they are.
That's deep. Because everything you just named is what's really going on.
Yeah.
And people get caught up and they get in a jam, and then they try to figure out a way to get out of the jam. And, you could say 50% go to the left and 50% go to the right.
If that, because it's you have, and so there's more than one system, because you do that. So we're talking about a system of impoverishment, right? Either you can afford it or you can't, right? Either you got this credit score or you don't. Either you got this interest rate or you didn't, right? So that's one system. That whole, if you food insecure, then there's probably a housing problem. There's a housing problem, there's a job problem. There's a job problem. That's one system. But then you take that and you add race or blackness on top of that, then you even push, you know what I'm saying? Then it's even more. So it ain't even 50-50, depending on where you fall.
Right, exactly. More like a 70-30. That's crazy.
It ain't right. It ain't equal. I'll tell you that much.
And that's everywhere.
That's everywhere. That's America.
Yes,
and that's America.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to get some information from you, or legal advice or anything about, all the amazing things you spoke about, where could they find you at?
Well, um, right now, so I am an attorney. I'm a practicing attorney, and in New York. But uh, recently, around the summer, I started a new position, a full time position, even though I'm still an attorney. So I'm not really taking on a lot of new clients.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there may be some questions you have that I can't answer because some attorneys have different specialties, right, that they do. But
Mm-hmm.
hit me up so I can give you. And then as far as this other, the conversation that we're having now, and just my interest in politics and civic engagement, I'm actually going to be, and I haven't done it yet, so I can't fully promote it, but I'm actually going to be launching my own YouTube channel because I really think that's important. I want people to log on and tune in for free. And I would just want to do just, 15, 20 minutes of this is what this means. This is what this means. When you go to the poll, here's a ballot. This is what all of these things mean.
Mm.
So I'm gonna start doing that. But I can give you my email address if anybody has any questions. Um, Legal questions, I have one email, and then other questions, I have another email. So my email, if you have legal questions, and again, full disclosure, I may not be able to assist you, is Theresa, Theresa, at law at gmail.com. So it's Theresa, law at gmail.com. And
I think she got a phone call or something, so that the conversation froze. Give her a second. She should be coming back on. Yeah, pause, because it
oh,
happens when
it
people
paused.
call,
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
say that again.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you have legal questions, again, I may or may not be able to help you. I'll let you know if I cannot help you. That email address is Theresa, Teresa at law at gmail.com. So it's Theresa, law at gmail.com. And then for questions and issues and to stay up to date on some of the projects I'm doing and speaking and YouTube channel I'm going to launch, that's going to be The Hassler. My last name is Hassler. So it's The Hassler, Hassler, Advantage, The Hassler Advantage at gmail.com.
Okay, Teresa, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Don Vito. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
And
This
I
was great.
appreciate you coming. I couldn't wait till you came on, because you're a lady with a lot of good information, a lot of good conversation. And we need more of that. We need more positivity out here.
Thank you.
There's too
Yeah, I
much
think we need
nonsense going on.
positivity, and we need education and information.
Yes.
There's a Bible verse that I use all the time. Just when I begin conversations like this, when I'm speaking in other forums, and it's Hosea 4:6. My people shall perish for lack of knowledge.
Mm.
Right, and that's the thing. My people shall
Yes.
perish for lack of knowledge, and so that motivates me. That moves me to break down these walls of information that our elected officials keep from us, right? That
Yes.
I want full transparency for my people in my community. I don't care who you vote for, what decision you make. I just want you to have all the information available. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe if you have all the information available, I don't have to convince you to do one thing or another, right?
Right.
Sometimes we do things because we don't have all the information. But if
Right.
you have all the information available to you that everybody else has, then, you make your choice.
And if you need some help with your YouTube channel, give me a call.
Don Vito got it.
That's what I do.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I want
Thank
to
you.
add on to what you just said also.
Yes.
They also said if you want to hide something, I got offended behind this. This is many years ago.
Mm.
They said if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in the
Put it
book.
in the book.
Come
Yeah.
on, man. That's
Yeah.
disrespectful right there.
It is disrespectful. It is disrespect. It's a generalization. Um, and it is. It's a very offensive
Yes.
statement. It's very charged. And I understand why people say, but I don't like it when, and when you hear statements like that, it usually is not white people that say it necessarily. It's black people, or it's black
Mhm.
people that repeat it,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes we do that to each other,
Hmm.
right? Where we look down and we put each other in these groups.
Yes.
So, but everybody, and honestly, law school, law is only, it's reading and writing. It ain't LA Law, it ain't Law and Order SVU. It's a bunch of reading and writing. That's really what it is. And I'm not, I got books, but I'm like, a lot, like I got them, they look nice, but I ain't really been cracking them open like that since I'm not in the mood. But
Right.
everybody doesn't learn that way. Some people really like to read, and that's good. I like to
Mhm.
read, you learn, but not all the time. Sometimes you need people to engage you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They figure out train, plane, automobile, how to engage with their people. We have to figure out more than one way to engage with our people,
Exactly. 100%
right?
facts.
If
Yes.
it takes creating a video game, so my nephew will get off Fortnite and pay, then we don't have to create a video game, right? Like
Exactly.
I can't, because the
Uh-huh.
information is too important.
Yes. So you have a wonderful day,
Thank you. You too.
and I'm gonna talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank,
Definitely. We'll
yeah,
be in
thank you
touch.
for coming on the show. And like I said, if you want to get that YouTube channel rolling, let me know because I'm good with that.
All right.
And I
Perfect.
like
Thank
I
you
like to
so much.
help people.
Thank
I
you.
had to
Done.
learn on my own, and I said, you know what? I can show a person how to get around a lot of them, intangibles who, they just,
Yeah.
reach
It's
out.
definitely a process. So I appreciate it. I'll take all the help I can get.
You got it. So
All
you
right.
enjoy your evening. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
all the guests
Thank
for
you.
coming on, watching Theresa Hassler show
Bye,
tonight.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a good one.